So the topic we wanted to address now was AI in insurance, or I should say AI and insurance, because AI is there to stay. It's a big hype for the moment. Lots of money flowing in, and there's been, of course, a lot of talks inside and outside the insurance world about AI, about the use of AI, about, of course, the danger, the pros and cons. But one thing is important is that for insurance industry, AI is a reality that they are facing, as well as able to integrate to a certain level. And why do I say a reality that they are facing? Is because around insurance, AI is very present. If you take in health insurance, for instance, AI is extremely heavily used into developing a new treatment, new technology, new tools to help patients. And insurers on the other side, they are having insured people there being treated by AI-powered tools. So lack of understanding of that technology would be wrong for an insurance company. It would do very much good for first client interaction, premium adjustment, and claim mastering, to be able to understand how AI is being used by external parties. Now, this is one angle. The other angle is insurance companies need to understand also how they can integrate AI. And as we discussed yesterday, there's a lot of history in most of insurance companies who need to be able to find their right way to use AI. There was, of course, a digital revolution. There was big data for like 20 years, or such a long time. So there's been a lot of evolution towards better integration of technology, and insurance industry is one of the heaviest investor in tech. Not tech companies, well, I guess in tech companies as well, but also in tech services and everything that goes around in that ecosystem. So AI is of course one element that can be of extreme use for insurance. I see several angles. The first one is client facing. So how can we help clients experience to be improved thanks to AI? But then in the background, there's a lot of potential use as well. There is the efficiency. There is also the best mastering of the risk environment where the insurance company is operating. By that I mean, by having a lot of data in the past, there was use of data, but not an optimal use of data, thanks to the power that AI can bring, and when AI, I mean AI together with all human experts and people who can steer AI to optimize the way data are assessed and the risk management is operated. Then insurance company can use that to improve their own risk assessment, and therefore set the right price for it. But not only for that, but also to be able to explain to clients. When I mean that, I mean more corporate client who, when they receive a price for a certain coverage, they are in need, maybe needed, but also wish to understand better why a price has been set in a certain way. And the models of insurance in reinsurance are extremely complex. What AI can help is also there to translate the model into something which is easier to understand for a client, not from the point of view of the expert, but from the point of view of the person who knows a lot, but not maybe enough to understand the full modeling, and who needs to also explain internally as in that corporate client's organization why the price is certain in that way. It's also not only for insurance companies or reinsurers, but also for the whole distribution suite. there's a lot of actors in the insurance ecosystem who, on the one hand, can make better use of AI for client optimization. But if I take all the consulting companies and brokerage companies who help clients to improve their own coverage, themselves also in need of better, finer, more advanced modeling that can be used to allow the client to better understand and ask the right question for insurance companies. So long story short, AI is a very, very good tool. It's but again, is a tool that need to be operated by humans, with humans, in collaboration with humans, we could say, and that will drive strong improvement in the insurance industry and ecosystem. So it goes, as I said, much beyond the insurers. It's the whole client environment, the whole distribution, consulting environment, the reinsurance environment, and the ecosystem around insurance, which is extremely strong, and a lot of new things are happening there, a lot of innovation, lots of great ideas, a lot of bright people are just finding new ways of servicing and helping already established actors to improve. They're also competing, so there's of course beyond the improvement element, there's an element of danger there, and I see several dangers. The first danger is not to do anything with AI. That's the first. The second danger is to do too much with AI. So when AI is being implemented from an insurance point of view, it should be not as a laboratory to do experiment and maybe something will come out of that. But there has to be an objective. We talk about vision when leading a company. There has to be a vision, bring the people behind it. What is the same for implementing elements of AI within an insurance company or as part of companies or the ecosystem? There has to be a vision. There has to be measures. There has to be the ability to demonstrate that investment is done to bring a better outcome than before that investment. Better outcome. It should be financial. It should be more client. Should be more client satisfaction, more client retention. So there's a lot of KPIs that can be put on the table there, but it has to be measured. It has to be also a positive outcome. In the world we are today, we are at the beginning of this revolution. We don't know yet where it's leading us, and there's still a lot of experimentation that are happening simply because the depth of experience of the whole people involved is not extremely long. However, it's improving all the time, and every step taken is a learning that drives these tools in the right direction. Let's take an example, for instance, with AI, and I will try to describe the world before AI, where insurance companies are organized in silos. I mean here insurance companies where there are a lot of different products that are offered to clients, which can be from the house, the car, health insurance, life insurance. And I mention retail here because I would like to bring the example of a person that I could be, or whoever an individual client is, where as everything is organized in silos inside the insurance company, creating bridges between the different type of product, of course, has been getting insurers very, very busy in the last decades to be able to set an agent or the ability of a contact person in front of the client to discuss about and explain the different products that exist and that are available to the client or already in the client basis, and the client is already applied or and those contracts. but it doesn't maybe fit his own life situation at the time or his family situation at the time. Now, this is happening now, but it's still very siloed and very clunky in the way the processes are working behind the scene. And for the client, what it means is that there is a lot of hope. So I had an agent in front of me a few weeks ago, and he knew my contract. He didn't know everything about my contracts, but he knew a little bit, and there was a lot of expectation that was created. Now, what AI will allow is that these expectations are met because of the silo and the slowness of the clunkiness and of those tools that exist, simply because they were built in a separate way. There is always a delay between the moment the expectation is created and the moment where things are happening. And AI will be able to improve and reduce that time from weeks to days or even minutes or a second, to allow a much quicker way of interaction. That's an example that I could take, and that leads me to what this industry will look like in the future. There will be much more personalization of the insurance and offering, which will be better adapted to the situation of a client. Of course, it requires exchange of information, but the ability of an insurer to hyper personalize is going to change the game, and then it doesn't mean that the situation today will not evolve. That's the whole point, is that there is a life cycle understanding, and that the insurer demonstrate the ability to follow that life cycle. There's a lot of misunderstanding about hyper-personalization. Hyper-personalization doesn't mean hyper-complexity. It doesn't mean that every client has a contract which is extremely specific to his or her situation, and therefore create an extreme complexity in the back in the back office or in the administration. What it means is that there is a clear understanding of the situation of the client, and that the offering is packaged in a way which is clear and understandable by the client. So not necessarily having so many options that the client even can't remember what the options are of a contract several minutes or hours or days afterwards, but something which is transparent, which is trustworthy, and which is adapted so that the client feels that there is an understanding of his or her situation and the ability to respond to those needs in a very quick way. AI will help bridging all those silos and ironing out differences in the way the service is being delivered to the client, and also will allow for a 24/7 availability of element of answers and Q&As and maybe avatars and chatbots, but evolved chatbot, not thank you for your question, we will refer you to an agent in the next 48 hours, but a tool that allows a client to receive already quite a lot of information whenever he has some questions. Regulation, big topic for the insurance ecosystem. Regulation is the basis of the insurance ecosystem. It's what's creating the insurance contract, which is the bond between a client and an insurer, and establishes a more tangible truth element, or a catalyst for truth between the insurer and the client, or the client and the insurer. What does that mean is that the insurer receives money from a client who pays without knowing if he or she will ever be in need of that, and on the promise that the insurer will pay in case of damage. Car, it could be fire, it could be an iPhone that's falling on the floor and breaks down, or smashes, or whatever is happening that drives a claim to be filed with the insurer, and the hope and the trust that the insurer will pay the due amount. there's always issues there, and there's always more expectation from the client, and the insurer tries to do usually the right job, paying the right amount based on the contractual conditions, and those conditions, of course, they're regulated by a set of legislation. Insurance is often seen as very traditional, a bit old-fashioned, in the way that from the client point of view, this regulation, from his point of view, are not changing. The contracts are the same for the last decades. The general conditions are still called general conditions. The application form is still called the application form. There's still a medical questionnaire, or you still need to give the power of the car and the size of and the color of the car, etc. So there's a lot of things that aren't changed because the materiality of the situation doesn't change, and therefore from the client point of view there is no change. From the insurer point of view, however, there has been so many changes for the last let's say 30-35 years in the insurance industry. It's first a facilitator. Without that piece of legislation, I don't think the insurance company would be able to survive, because it sets the rules for a long-term view, and it balances the expectation from shareholders and everybody to achieve extremely quick results. We see a lot of impatient people in insurance, but without this long-term need established in the legislation and the sets of controls, then there could be a lot of dangers, whether they're financial or too risky, or losing clientele, losing even the trust. So it's a necessary catalyst to have a regulation. It's also a necessary catalyst for the long-term sustainability of the business. And there is always the danger, and it's something that we see in Europe, but not only in Europe. And we tend to be very critical about ourselves, but insurance regulations are very strict in many other countries. US or China, for instance, have also very strict and complex regulations. In any way, in Europe, it is something that creates for the public also a very strong trust in the system. Let's say that if you had in Spain a complete change of legislation to copy the French or German law or Slovenia law or whichever law, there will be a big question mark. The insurance legislation cannot be dissociated from how the full set of society is working. I don't consider insurance as a pillar of society, but basically it's a basis that allows the pillars of the industry and the economic world to thrive in a society. And therefore, it's extremely closely interrelated with all those elements. We speak about social security, or even car regulation, or so many elements of the legal system that you can't change an insurance piece of legislation fundamentally without impacting the whole society. So that's why there are a lot of difference between the legislation of insurance in Europe. What is happening also, of course, there are some zealots in the insurance industry, legislation and control system that tend to over-regulate, but that's due simply to society as well. In society, you have a part of society that really wants a lot of regulation and a lot of state intervention, and part of society that really wants to minimize that. But because insurance is such a pillar of society, then the people part is always very well considered, and therefore legislation has been growing significantly for a while now, and it could be also challenging to implement that. because as insurer you would like to do business, you want to develop your services, you want to create something which is good for your client, you want to be there for them, you want to add a service element. Insurance is not only about being insurance now, it's also about all the service element that you provide next to the insurance coverage and contract to be able to help the clientele. And often you are not allowed to offer the full extent of the service because of the element of legislation. GDPR, for instance, has been established at European level, and then of course each country have implemented it in a more or less forceful way depending of the culture and government of the country. But it's something which can be extremely limitative. I'm just going to take an example. An executive of a very, very big English company, a client of ours 8-9 years ago, had a health problem and was disabled at home. It was in the UK. So culturally and legally in the UK, there's a lot of services that exist to bring people back to work. So high-level executive, extremely well paid, but also the pay was due to the extremely good competence that this person was bringing to his employer or employer. And after 6 months, thanks to the whole ecosystem being able to work using data, allowing insurance and servicing companies to work together, she was back at work with 2 key elements. But the most important was that she was so happy because she could have her life back. She was not somebody who wanted to be disabled and do nothing at home. She was somebody who wanted to contribute and do something. Of course, her perspective on life has changed afterwards, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that the happiness of that person, from being just miserable and feeling useless to somebody who was able to contribute again and have a social life and working life back there. So that was extremely positive. Of course, financially, it was very good for the employer, for the insurer, and for the social system. But all in all, you have a bad situation with a person who is not happy, and you create something positive. And sometimes legislation does not allow that to happen. And that's something which also is the dark side, let's say, of the consumer protection, is the overdoing it, the over patronizing of society. But hey, that's my opinion, because I see this more as a supporting people, and of course there are others who will say, yeah, your personal opinion, Francois, has a dark side as well, because sometimes insurer will tend to overuse that to be able to pay less claims. So yes, of course, there has to be a balance. There has to be an understanding of everybody's situation. But I think legislation should remain as simple as possible, should still allow for helping people and not overprotecting on blindly a situation which is neither good for the client nor society. And I can't remember where I heard that, but when a legal system is so complex that the whole population does not even understand the legal system anymore, and needs experts and field experts, legal experts, they have all their field of expertise to be able to understand, then it's a moment where we need to think about what legislation is the right one, the right level, and be able to create the right balance between making sure that the industry is sustainable in the long term, that the client element remains the core of the industry, but that helping client is also something which remains allowed as part of the legal system. So, big question, no answer. I think it balances depending on legislators and orientation there and the political situation. But it's something. It's a question that I will never see solved, and I don't believe anyone will see this one solved completely in the future. There's going to be always a challenge there.